Where's the pause to get real with yourself and figure out, what do I want? Looking at with no judgment, no right or wrong, no measure.
So you're saying that actually the number one mistake people make when they're making decisions around their careers is that they haven't done an adequate amount of self-reflection?
This is a question I'll have for both of you. Think about the happiest moment you had in childhood. And then I want you to think about the happiest moment you've had in the last 5 to 10 years.
I reached a pretty high level of happiness during the pandemic, and probably most recently playing video games, because I was able to recapture those boyhood moments where I just felt joyous.
Majority of the time what I find, I've done this with 5 people over the last month, not one time was money involved.
Our guest today is financial behavioral expert who is here to help us think differently about achieving our financial plans. He's the CEO of Behave Technology, which helps clients be clear-headed when considering financial decisions. He's trained over 1,000 financial advisors by now, and he's going through some life changes of his own. So I'm happy to introduce Brian Pasalich. Hi, Brian.
Good morning. How's everybody doing today?
Great.
We're good. Excited to chat with you, man. And listen, we know how hard it is to talk about money. So Jamal and I have both completed an assessment of our financial decision-making styles, and Brian is going to, in real time, share our strengths and our weaknesses. So if you think it's hard to talk about money, we're going to start. He's even evaluated us as a pair. And Jamal, I'm not into long-distance relationships.
Me neither.
But it should be really interesting to see how two folks with different mindsets come together and make decisions around money, which Jamal and I will be doing as kind of co-hosts and business partners. The people tuning in are going through or are considering some big changes in their lives, changes that will impact their financial lives, their families, and for many of them, how they'll see themselves. And in your experience, both as an entrepreneur and as a financial coach, what do you think the number one thing people get wrong about their decisions to change career? Because they're inherently decisions about risk.
Well, I think there's 2 parts. One I would start with is what we call social desirability bias, right? It's how we want others to perceive us. Are we real? And a lot of times, I call it first date syndrome. You recall back to when you were dating, you go on that first date, they have no idea who the hell you are. They're getting a completely different version of you, and you're putting your best foot forward. Now, we do that with ourselves as well. We call that the ideal self. But when we're having the conversations with ourselves, a lot of times, we don't take the time to pause for a second, get real as far as what is it that I really want. I say, what the F do I want? And I do that a lot with my team, but this is one area we don't do it enough with ourselves. We get blasted with so many things through social media, through posts, through emails, what we're seeing on TV every day of the ideal self, the great pictures, the travels, all that. The problem is, where's the time out? Where's the pause to get real with yourself and figure out, what do I want? Looking at with no judgment, no right or wrong, no measure, right? We talk about what are our strengths and weaknesses. I cut that stuff out. We're unique and different. Get real with who you are. You brought up, Rob, risk. We look at risk a lot of times around investments. We look at risk of, can I pay the bills? But do we look at risk? I'm 50. I just turned 50 in May. And I know I don't look a day over 49.8. But the thing is, what are we risking today versus what do we risk waking up at 65 and go, what the F did I just do? And if I'm unhappy, I'm miserable. I left a very high paying job at 39, literally the month before my bonus would come in. Why? Because I woke up and I said, forget it. I looked at from a risk perspective at 39, do I want to wake up at 60? I had one of our partners at the firm that actually had a stroke at 48 and died, right? And so that's the key piece versus walk away and move on, right? And figure out what's more important for me. So I still remember happiest 13, my final summer in Yugoslavia back then, spending 6 months with my aunt and uncle. I was in the water every single day. We're about 100 meters away from the water, if that. That was my happiest childhood memory, right? Then we go to adulthood, right? And thinking about that, where is that happiest moment? I'm curious, just out of the 2 of you, if one of you want to over the last 5 years, when were you happiest?
For me, it's 2 easy ones. Probably, I reached a pretty high level of happiness during the pandemic when I was spending more time with my friends and family. We were isolated in the jungle for about 3 months. So we got on each other's nerves, and it was really irritating. But at the same time, it was hard to walk away from, and an experience I was trying to hold on to. And probably most recently, playing video games, because I was able to recapture those boyhood moments where I just felt joyous. And I'm like, wait, I'm 50 years old playing a video game, but I'm laughing like I haven't laughed in years. Yeah.
I mean, but think about it. We don't spend enough time on that question, right? We spend so
Yep.
much time on what do I need to be happy, right? And it's most often tied to a material component. But the time in the jungle, Jamal, you were with friends, and it's like I look back, it was when I was a flight paramedic working for Life Flight. And yesterday my partner and I were at the store, and of course the medevac chopper was flying overhead. I still to this day, I do this and I watch it. Why? One, because I miss being in a helicopter, but two, that was my happiest time. The camaraderie of the team. One, you're in life and death situations, and two, is just the relationships that I built. Plus, I was doing something very impactful. Now, out of the list of jobs I've had over our careers, that was my lowest paid one, but it was my happiest moment. Community, family, impact were something that, for me, my core values, and this is one of the pieces that I really jump back to, is what are your core values? What makes you tick, right?
It's funny. Jamal mentioned video games. And I'm a big gamer. And a number of years ago, when I was working at a bank, I took a day off because it was the 17th of March, 2017. The Nintendo Switch had come out with a brand new Zelda, and I just wanted to clear the weekend. And the judgment I got from others for communicating that part of my life that brings me joy was really, really, really high. Is this kind of one of the things you're getting at, that actually we lose the ability to connect with our childhood selves and we kind of progressively get pressure to be a different version of ourselves? Like, what do you think's going on there?
It is. I mean, if you look at our role models today, right? And I don't mean to throw any shade on anyone, the Elon Musk, the Mark Cubans of the world. There's all these things they have. And this thing, that we're glued to a majority of the time, the information that we're fed, there's ways that we're supposed to be, right? In adulthood, when you go through college, you're taught a certain way. When you're an exec, you're taught a certain way. There's things that you should do, should be. That's kind of the norm. But is it the norm? And that's the question. And a lot of that is, it's funny. It's what we place on ourselves more than someone else places. And so we tend to really take it so personal. And we're the worst judgment of ourselves, right? Others can judge us like, listen, if we've got a good self-confidence and self-understanding, it's like, hey, you know what, Rob? I know you think I shouldn't be playing video games, so the hell with it. I'm going to do it, right?
I found out I'm an analyzer, and analyzers demonstrate more confidence than others and have an above average financial engagement. However, they tend to be more risk averse. And Rob, I think you're a strategizer. Strategizers have above average financial engagement and are comfortable taking more risks than others. The results say that strategizers are sharp, analytical, and ready to take calculated risks. But watch out, once their minds are made up, their adventurous side must push them to bite off more than they can chew.
That sounds about right. For
That
me.
sound right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a startup entrepreneur. I opened a company in a country I'd visited twice, and one of those was for Burning Man. And I have no problem quitting something, starting something else, and hoping that the money will come in the future. I'm very, very comfortable in that space. Jamal, you're an engineer. I'm sure that being an analyzer feels right to you.
Yeah, it's spot on. Although my wife doesn't like that I analyze everything. It's true.
So I'm gonna challenge your thinking on this.
Okay.
Again, going to strengths and weaknesses, blind spots or superpowers. Why don't we just unique? Here's who you are. And if you notice on your report, did you see anything negative saying? Because we actually changed blind spots, right? Because this is something when we talk about biases, when we talk about things like that, we hear negative connotation. And the second we do that, our brain starts to look at, oh, that's bad, I got to correct. Again, in this case, it's who we are. The better that we understand ourselves, great. Jamal, you have high overconfidence. Rob, yours is a little low. You could be 100 or 0. Neither one is good or bad. The piece is, it's about understanding what drives us. And so that's that piece. If you notice on there, we call it thinking style, where it used to be blind spots, right? We avoid those biases, things that could have that negative connotation. So to your point, I mean, being an analyzer, right? So Jamal, it's understanding that, great, I've got high overconfidence. So knowing that, and this tending to be right, it's great. So one of the easiest ways when you're making important decisions, right, is to look at maybe playing devil's advocate, having a decision journal. I'm a high overconfidence guy myself. I am a big pre-mortem guy. Anytime we build out anything, we're so focused on postmortems, what went wrong, what went right. Let's do a pre-mortem. Let's figure out what can go wrong and let's break it, right? That helps to reassure us, looking at past decisions. And so to the point of analyze or strategizer, right? We like things that we can fit into. I'm a driver, if you couldn't tell. And so I'm very positive driven. I don't want to talk about risk. Yes, and for the most part, like I'm also an introvert, right? So INTF, ENT. We like things like that because we can group and it's easy and it's relatable for us. We talk about it in that way because it creates, like we're doing now, a conversation piece. But when we work with clients, it's really thinking below that behaviorally. And that's really what we look at is being an analyzer versus a strategizer. One's not better or worse than the other. It's simply looking at understanding behaviorally how I think, and the better I understand myself, right? Things around anchoring, right? For example, having a high anchoring, Rob. It's looking at, again, going out on that date. Wow, that reminds me of my ex, right? Or it's, making a decision. Shit, it's going to be the same damn thing. And a lot of times we don't realize we're doing that. And now if I understand I've got high anchoring in itself, it's not bad. But what it is understanding, all right, now I can look at logically, is this really the same thing as I experienced before? If it's making an investment decision, making a career decision. So that's where understanding those things, because this is the one thing where I say I'm not an expert, I'm the student of this. I have a team of PhDs that are much smarter than me. But the biggest things that I see is trying to change our thought around behaviors, right? We always want to fix behaviors, correct, change, right? You either have kids or you've been a kid. How good were your parents at getting you to do something you didn't want to do, right? The 2-year-old in me, and I grew up in an immigrant household that my life was literally in their hands. This is me. Who are you to tell me what to do, right? From 2 on. And so to change my behavior, it's got to come from me. There's nothing that either of you could say in 3, 4, 5 meetings. That's why we go to therapy for years to have a breakthrough. So an advisor or a coach or that, it takes a long period of time, but it's getting real. Here's who I am. Over time, we can make those course corrections if there is something that is causing self-harm or harm to others. Otherwise, leave it be. This is what's unique and different about you. And so to the point of the pair analysis, really quick, this is something where I think is very key. Jamal, you talked about with your wife, and I actually want to send her an assessment now and run a pair analysis because this is such a big thing that for years we've taught getting on the same page and thinking alike, which is bullshit. If the 3 of us start a business tomorrow and we're all one, right? The problem is, what are we doing? We're missing out over here. This is the key piece, especially at this late stage. When I say late stage, we're seasoned, right? I know late stage means like I'm dying tomorrow. I know that shit like that. But it's really, where we're at season, we don't need that. We can make our own decisions, right? Understand me, ask questions, and asking those questions. And I think this is the piece, and those of us trying to make that decision and those that we surround ourselves with. Are they saying, you know what, Jamal, here's what you need to do, or Rob, you know what you'd be good at? Are they shutting the fuck up and they're saying, you know what, tell me about this? Asking questions with the goal of, I call it, there's factual listening and empathetic listening to that, get beneath that surface to really get at the core. That's who you want to surround yourself with. Now once you have all that shit figured out, then it's great. Then you can go to the trainer or whatever and say, all right, hold me accountable, beat the shit out of me if I don't. That's fine later. But this prescriptive mindset at our stage doesn't work a lot of times because we all want it, right? And it's easier. Just tell me what to do, right? But it's not impactful and we wake up 5 years down and we're in the wrong course.
Okay. So, Jamal, I'm going to go with the first answer, which is you.
Brian, so you coach financial advisors, and one of your famous questions is, what the fuck do you want? I love this question. I think this question that our listeners understand the importance of. So my question is, how the fuck do I know what the fuck I want?
How it's turned out for me every single time is completely different than it looked when I first started. Rob, serial entrepreneur, the day one that you started to the end, it's never looked exactly the same. And that's life, right? That's the cool part is get messy, give yourself permission to get messy, look bad, all that stuff. It's like even here on here, I'm sure I'm making tons of mistakes. I'm okay with it. This is me. This is who you get. It took years to get there, right? But I think, Jamal, to your question, it really starts with that is,
Brian, I got a great example for you there, Brian. And this is about being present with your children. When you're working in a corporate setting, you're always waiting for what's the next meeting? What do I have to do tomorrow? Who's the most senior person I got to talk to next? all day long, every day, 7 days a week, and you're almost never present. Meaning, like, I was with my children, but I was thinking about the next thing that had to be done or the person I had to talk to. And I can tell you today, it's fun to make your kids laugh and actually watch them smile and enjoy the moment. That is what people mean sometimes when they're saying, I want to be with families. I want to be in the moment when my kids are laughing and enjoy it. And that's a paradigm shift from working in a corporate setting to being your own business owner.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And a lot of us think that we can't do that in corporate.
Mm-hmm.
Funny part is we can't. My partner works at Amazon and he tends to go way overboard. And I have a friend of mine that's pretty senior there. And, I asked, I said, why is it that you guys do this? You basically burn out those that are the good workers and really, because the thing is until you learn to say no, they're going to keep pushing. Is it, we look at, well, it's my work and fuck my work. Is it really, or is it us? That perception of what we think we need to. And so, some of us are going to stay in the career we're in. Some of us are going to change. But even looking at that, and this is another thing, it's like where I'm at, can I make it work for me? Right? If I take control back, your most important meeting, Jamal, is your kids, right? At the end of the day, if it comes down to a meeting or a family, just having that paradigm shift and saying, listen, that meeting can move because I need to be here for X. It can still, I think one thing, we look at things from an or conversation instead of an and, right? How do we make this an and? How do I make it a win-win on both, right? And I think that's another piece because, again, some are going to listen to this and may want to be able to just stay where they're at and just make changes. And that's the piece it's get out of this right or wrong, how it looks, have it turn out, and that's it. You can make your family laugh. You can be there with your kids. They're your most important meeting.
Yeah. But you raise another good point, Brian, which is, are you in an environment where you're allowed to say no? Yeah. And some cultures don't allow no to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think you got many chances to say no as you were kind of reaching the end of your career in the corporate world, Jamal, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a boundary setting conversation we're getting into here. And saying no oftentimes will cost you political capital, right? Yeah. So saying no, you can't call me on a Sunday, sometimes just doesn't work. Or, hey, you can't schedule a meeting at 8 o'clock at night for me to show up the next morning at 8 a.m. because I'm not going to show up. Right. Those types of things when you're expected to show.
One of our listeners wrote in and they said, I know I need to make a change in my career, but I'm getting stuck on the financial planning part. And they're not a spreadsheet person. So how do they figure out what approach to planning will work for them? So specific, tactical, actionable advice.
Okay. I mean, great question, right? And it's like, we battle this a lot. How do I take a non-planner and make them a planner? Again, you don't give the Ozempic or the magic wand and you make it that. What you do is you've got to build a plan for the non-planner. You've got to build a plan for that individual that is the dreamer, right? So how do you do that? Both plans. The plan itself is the doing. That's just the numbers. The funny part is that's the easy part. Getting clear on what you want. What are your personal goals? What are your career goals, right? Your values, what drives you? And then breaking it down. And so having that, and it goes back to getting that conversation down first is the first step. Because if you can't do that, what the fuck are we putting in this plan, right? And that's the biggest mistake. That's why we can't get above 30-some% planning of less than half actually follow through with, right? Because again, for the three of us, if we think about a 65 version of ourselves, I have no clue what I want to be at 65. And so I think a little differently. I think, and again, I'm a no good, bad, right, or wrong. I think in a journey version, right? So plan is I want to retire at 65 and I want X, Y, Z and whatever. Journey is how do I maximize my opportunity at every step of my journey, right? If I want to go out and shop and enjoy myself, but how do I maximize to still, allow me to achieve what I want, right? And so getting clear as far as what's my goals, what's my value, what's my, I'm a big what's my vision statement, right? I love to have that in front of me. And then again, every goal, it's got to be specific. It's got to be measurable and it's got to be time bound, right? Those are three things because otherwise it's just a dream. I want a house. All right, it's just a dream, or bullshit. I love to travel and I love to bring my family together, right? So those things, working a corporate job, I get 1 week or 2 weeks vacation if I'm lucky every year. That wasn't going to happen. But it was a matter of looking at all my goals, what was really important, tying them to my values, calling bullshit on these goals. So again, there's a trade-off and only there's no right or wrong. Only you can look at it. I've had friends but I've got a wife and 3 kids that I'm responsible. Again, I'm not telling you to do it or not. You have to make that determination, because otherwise it's like, yeah, I want this bullshit goal, but I'm not willing to put the effort in. Then what happens? You start to set in your mind, well, I'm just going to fuck it up and I'm not going to hit anything anyway. So get real with yourself. Have the no bullshit conversation starting there. I think if they can start there, come in, here's the things that I want, here's my values, here's what I'm tied to it. Now, every goal you can put a number to. If you want to take yoga every Sunday, there's a number to that to do it. That's the easy part. That goes into the plan. Then you bring an advisor in, an advisor that understands that. It's like, I'm not a spreadsheet guy myself. If an advisor is a spreadsheet person, it's not going to work for me. So the other piece, final piece on this, I'll say, is to the point of the pair analysis, right? When I was young, I'm a driver. I hated working. I would work with execs, CEOs, the people that were the drivers. I hated working with CFOs. It would kill me. As I got older, I realized that was bullshit, and here's why. The best analyzer, and this is one reason I would actually pick Rod, I'm not an analyzer. I need someone different than me, because see, I'm like, let's go for it. Jamal's going to look at all the plans and do the details for me. Now, it's going to be a pain in the ass. It'll be easier to work with you, Rob, just because we're more similar. I'm an explorer, by the way. Explorer and strategizers are similar. But I need the analyzer because I need that pain, because that's the piece. Now, if we put two analyzers in the room, we're going to have the best PowerPoints, the best Excel sheets, but we're not going to have, see, so that's the reason why you actually want someone different than you to drive you, because Jamal's going to be the one to hold me accountable when I fuck up, not if, right? But when I do,
So Brian, let's get a little bit more practical for the people that might be listening, where money is tight, right? So I'm going to analyze this for a second.
Yep.
Most Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. They don't have enough money in their accounts. Yeah. So what do people do if money is tight, budgets are tight, and they simply don't have enough money to actually move forward?
Yeah, this is the tough question, right? This is the thing that actually keeps me up at night. Now, what other changes can we make, right? Maybe we love to go out shopping. And again, it's not a here's what you need to do. We're really good at this. And so, you know what? I'm going to look at Jamal and say, sure, I'm going to start saving. No, I won't spend, right? I'm going to tell you what you want to hear, but I'm going to do what I'm going to do, right? So getting real, the no bullshit is the key piece. So starting with, it's looking at what's more important. And I do this with my clients all the time. You know, we got needs, wants, and goals, right? Because the needs we really can't change. I mean, you know, rent or mortgage, maybe you downsize. So there are things, if you break it down to those three factors, right? Your needs, wants, and goals. Needs are the things that I can do. You know, my auto insurance, can I reevaluate and see, can I get a cheaper rate? You know, I'm paying, you know, simple little things, right? I've got a 250 deductible. Let's bring it up to 1,000. How's it? There's so many things you can do there to change stuff, but now you get that stuff taken care of. Now you go to the wants, and it's really the wants versus goals. I want to be my own entrepreneur. Why? Because I want to do X, Y, Z. I want more time with family, even though that comes several years later. But it's getting clear on that. And then it's really looking at, and again, in a logical way, what are the trade-offs and what do I want to pull from? And I think that's the simplest way that you can do it. Because me just putting you on a budget, and here's what you need to do, you haven't bought it. I can tell you what you need to do. It's not going to work. You have to determine and control that.
And Brian, like, I get that. And I hear a lot of don't eat the avocado toast, which I appreciate is not exactly what you're saying, but it sounds a lot like that, which is find ways to find incremental gains in your existing budget. And I'd say, you know, as a millennial, I'm lucky that I made some good decisions about my finances early, but most people cannot afford to save. And I think when we're talking to, like, when we're really there and it's like, okay, I feel like my budget is as lean as it's going to get, and I've got my one meal a week, and I'm not getting as many luxuries. We know a career change takes 6 to 8 months. A successful one, like, what about the other side of the equation? Are there ways to, like, what else would you do practically if you're advising somebody who's just like, listen, there's just so many dollars that I've got, and my needs and my wants don't leave much space left for my goals?
Yeah. And I think it really comes down to a couple things, right? It's you know, the avocado toast. It's like, I will never tell you you don't need it or you shouldn't. It's your decision. What's more important, the avocado toast or, I don't know, it's living here and doing this, right? You know, and again, it's, you know, whatever that is, that's the decision. Now, then you look at what can I control, right? You know, it's like, can I earn more? Is there anything I can do to get a raise? Is there anything I can do, you know, if I'm in a performance-based? Can I earn more? Can I live on less? Can I delay the day? Right? Those are really the things that we can control or change the goals, right? Those are the only four factors if we really, I'm a simple guy. If we break it down to those four things, right? So is there anything I can do where I'm at right now while I'm looking for a new job to increase my income? You know, I mean, maybe it is taking on a second job, right? I don't know. I've actually had people that have had careers that have gone because they wanted to get out of debt and get into a house. And one of my earliest planning clients, it was one of the best things, you know, is they both took on a second job and they agreed for 6 months, they didn't see each other hardly at all. Right. But yet what was going to be a 5-year goal became a 2.5-year goal. They paid down their debt in under a year, and it was, I think, 50, 60,000, just because both of them committed to working their ass off.
So, Brian, I think for some of our listeners, the message here is sometimes you just got to suck it up. And I lived in a suck it up scenario for 5 years, eating ham and cheese sandwiches to save for a house. I just did it. Literally, I'm not even kidding you. I mean, lunch and dinner was a sandwich.
I agree with you. You do have to suck it up. I took a year without drawing a salary, and I hadn't even raised the money to pay myself yet. But I knew that if I wanted to be the founder and CEO of a financial services company, there was a risk that I needed to take, and I just sucked it up. Did I buy new clothes for a year? No. My husband was tired of me wearing the same stuff all the time, but it was an investment in my future that I was willing to take. And I think nobody gets anywhere. I think there's a common misconception that we can all have what we want without having to give anything up, and I think probably it's just not realistic.
So Brian, if someone's listening right now and they're feeling stuck about making a big change because of money, what's the first thing they should do tonight?
Yeah, don't make it about money.
Yeah.
I think that's the very first thing, because if you focus on that, it's not going to change it. It's going to stress you out. Again, take a step back. You know, I would say, you know, if I'm going to say anything, is write this down. Don't get caught up in how it looks, have it turn out. I would actually challenge people to write that down, you know, and then really break it down and look at, all right, how do I get rid of judgment? How do I really get clear as far as what it is that I want, right? You know, final thing I'll say on that is, you know, the old saying is like, you know, when we die, if we, you know, all the studies that are out there, right? It's never once been a material item that they miss, regret, think about, or anything like that, right? And so there's actually something in that, right? Because that's one thing that I can guarantee, you know, I mean, I know Brian Johnson's trying to solve that, but it's like, we're all going to end up there at the end. But if everyone says that, right, we've yet to see anyone that says, damn, I wish I had more money.
So Brian, Jamal and I have been really lucky to get some of the insights that I know you don't offer directly to consumers right now, but I wonder if you'd be happy to give the first 5 people that email us at stuck@213studios.com an opportunity to go through that assessment. Would that be something that you're willing to help the Stuck community with?
Absolutely. I'll even double it to 10. I know. That's
bad. There we go. I should have negotiated harder.
I was going to say, yeah. Absolutely.
Brian, that was amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. Stuck is a 213 Studios recording. We are produced by myself, Rob Curtis, Jamal Stockton, and Jimena de la Tijera. It helps us a lot if you subscribe, leave a comment, or review and recommend us to your friends. And if Brian has inspired something in you, I mean, he's willing to help out the community, so I'd be taking advantage of this if I were you. Or you've got general comments or questions, please send us a voice note or an email to stuck@213studios.com. That's 213 the numbers and the word studios.com. See you all next week.